few years ago, I was living with my 2 kids in a little house close to the city. It wasn't easy back then. I was a single mom and always working, so it made it difficult to spend any time with them. Whenever we did do something, it usually had to be in the early mornings or later at night, unless it was on the weekends. We got by though, and we still had fun together, but I'll never forget the day that I thought all that was going to end. It all happened this one summer. Late one night, I was watching TV with my kids and eating Cheetos. That's usually what we did when I had been at work all day. It was always nice to be able to sit with them for a while before we went to bed, and they couldn't get enough Cheetos, so it was a treat for them too. After we had been there for a while, the kids eventually fell asleep on the couch next to me. I checked the time and realized it had gotten pretty late, so I woke them up and walked them upstairs to the bathroom so they could brush their teeth. Then I tucked them in and put them to sleep. As I was tucking them in, I heard weird noises coming from downstairs. I immediately started freaking out, but I tried not to show it while I finished putting my kids to sleep. I didn't want them to think anything was wrong. Once they were down, I slowly walked out of their room and listened quietly, and that's when I heard the noises again. There was definitely something moving around downstairs. I was scared shitless. I knew I had to check it out, but the idea of going down there by myself was terrifying. The noises continued though, so I slowly began to make my way down the stairs. It was pitch black in the house. My heart was pounding. I hoped I was just hearing things. After I got downstairs, I crept towards the living room and looked around. That's when I saw that the window was pried open. I was scared out of my mind. I began to think that someone was in my house, but as I looked around the living room, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. I figured if someone broke in, they would have gone for the TV first, but nothing had been moved that I could tell. I started thinking I might have just left the window open. Then I heard the noises again. This time, I could tell they were coming from the kitchen. My heart started pounding faster and faster as I turned around and slowly crept towards the noises. Then, as I stepped into the kitchen, I saw something terrifying. There was a creepy-ass woman crouched in my kitchen, eating Cheetos in the darkness. As I screamed, the woman just sat there chomping and slurping on the Cheetos. I was scared shitless, debating if I should confront the woman or just run away. That's when I said,
"Who are you? What the hell are you doing in my house?"
The deranged woman ignored me and continued to eat the Cheetos while she giggled like a psychotic freak. It was so creepy. She had to be some kind of lunatic.
"Get out of my house!"
I kept screaming at her, but it didn't do any good. The woman wouldn't move. She just kept eating the Cheetos. Then, out of nowhere, she suddenly charged at me with the scariest face I'd ever seen. All I could see were her cheesy teeth grinning at me while she laughed like a lunatic. I ran upstairs as fast as I could while she chased after me, cackling.
"Say cheese! These Cheetos taste just like my ex-husband's Tootsie Roll!"
I managed to get in my kids' room and slammed the door shut just before the woman grabbed me. Then, I pulled my phone out and called the cops. I could hear her talking to me from the other side of the door.
"Come on! I just wanted to talk! Open the door! I need some dental floss and Colgate! Right now! Before I get cavities, bitch!"
My kids woke up from all the noise, scared as hell. They tried to scream, but I forced them to be quiet. I didn't want the woman to know they were with me. I made them come over by me and we all stood there in the darkness, waiting for the woman to hopefully go away. It was the scariest experience of my life. We could hear her scraping and scratching at the door while we stood there. The whole while, she kept chuckling and giggling to herself like a psycho. Eventually, the woman left the door, and I heard more commotion coming from downstairs. She had to have gone back into the kitchen, but I was still shitting bricks. I knew it was only a matter of time before she came back upstairs. After what seemed like forever, the cops finally arrived. When they got there was no sign of the woman. All they found was an empty bag of Cheetos and half a bottle of water on the kitchen floor. I explained what happened, and they searched the whole house to make sure she was really gone. They didn't find the woman, but they did find what appeared to be bite marks and Cheeto residue on the door to my kids' room. It was like the woman had tried to bite her way inside. They eventually found the woman not too far from the house. She was wandering around the streets in the dark, still laughing to herself. The cops arrested her for breaking into my house. They were able to use the Cheeto residue on her teeth as evidence. She was charged and eventually put in jail. I still don't know why the woman was in my house. She would never give an answer to the cops. To this day, I can't stand the sight of Cheetos. I'm traumatized by anything to do with them. All I can hear is that woman laughing in my head while she screamed.
"Say cheese!"
The story was inspired by a bizarre Cheetos incident. Tulsa police said a woman is in jail after Cheeto residue on her teeth linked her to an attempted home burglary. Police said on February 26, patrol officers were dispatched to reports of a person attempting to force their way through the window of a home. The victim was alone in the residence with her 2 small children. She told 911 that a person was breaking in through a window. Officers arrived quickly and found an open window with the screen removed on the front of the house. A few seconds later, they saw a woman named Sharon Carr come out of the shadows and arrested her. Police said Carr allegedly pried the screen off and opened a window using a board. She then entered the home through the window, but left before stealing anything or harming the residents. Officers suspect she was spooked when she heard the residents in the house. Officers said they found an empty Cheetos bag and a bottle of water on the floor near the open window. Officers believe Carr dropped the Cheeto bag in water as she made her escape out the window. The victim identified Carr as the burglar after seeing her. Carr was further linked to the crime by Cheeto residue in her teeth. Carr was arrested on a first-degree burglary complaint. She offered no reason for committing the crime, police said. This happened in 2012 when I matched with this one girl from Tinder. After some text back and forth, we agreed to meet up at a restaurant downtown. I didn't have a car at the time, so I found myself taking public transit all the way there. When I arrived, my date and I ate, got to know each other, made some casual small talk, and then eventually agreed to go on a second date. The girl ended up taking an Uber home while I made my way to the nearest bus stop. I remember finding myself in the middle of the worst neighborhood in downtown St. Louis. Everything from fiends, gangbangers, dope slingers, and straight-up muggers were all over the place. When I got to the bus stop, there was only one guy there. He looked rough, like he just got out of his 7th 12-hour shift that week. He was wearing a torn-up backpack and some dirty clothes. But despite all that, the man looked hungry as hell. In his hands was a jumbo-sized bag of Cheetos that he was chomping on. I asked him if he knew when the next bus was coming. He said he just missed the last one, so it was going to be at least a half-hour wait. I settled in and stood next to the sign about 10 feet from him. Nothing about him bothered me at first, but as time went on, the way he was eating the Cheetos slowly started getting on my nerves. He'd grab a whole handful and stuff it into his mouth. Then he'd chew it all with his mouth wide open. The sound alone was disgusting. His mouth, hands, and teeth were completely orange. After every few handfuls, he'd suck all the powder off his fingers with the suction of a $5 hooker. Of course, there just can't be a normal person at a bus stop in St. Louis. Right as I was starting to find the situation funny, I saw this creepy dude looking at us from the corner of the block. The man stumbled over like only a fiend would. I knew he would come up and try to talk to us, but I held out hope that he would leave us alone. When he made his way towards us, he came up to me first. I nervously looked around, pretending not to notice him. The man then got right up in my face and stared me down for several seconds before speaking. "Hey, you got any change?" No, man, sorry." "Fine, keep your dollar. Just make sure to get on the bus and get the hell out of my neighborhood." I backed off in fear. The guy was a straight-up menace. My blood was pumping, but I was glad he left me off the hook. He then went over to the guy with a giant bag of Cheetos. "Hey, let me have some of those." "Hey, look at me. I said give me some of your Cheetos or I'm gonna take the bag out of your hand." "No, you're not. You can have some Cheetos when you get a job and pay for some, you lazy bum." "Oh, you think you're better than me? Give me those, bitch!" The creep then grabbed the bag of Cheetos and tried to rip them out of the man's hands. The man was able to hold on to it and shove the creep away. At first, they got into a shouting match. Then they started fighting. The pair started pushing and shoving. The creep kept lunging for the bag, but the Cheeto man juked him every time. I wanted to try and break it up, but I was honestly scared. I just stood there watching in awe. It was both scary and entertaining. I was watching a bum fight a guy over a bag of Cheetos, but I kept remembering the look in that psycho's eyes. It was like he was capable of anything. After a bit, the fight started to get serious, and it wasn't so funny anymore. I thought about calling the cops, but I looked around and saw a bunch of people filming it rather than calling 911, so I left my phone in my pocket. I couldn't help but get more scared watching it happen, though. I just kept feeling like it was going to end badly. And then I got proven horribly right. The attacker pulled out a knife and did the unthinkable.
You selfish son of a bitch! I just wanted some Cheetos! What the hell? Are you insane? Why? Why would you do that?
I couldn't believe my eyes. The guy had just stabbed that man over a handful of Cheetos. I was frozen stiff, and that insane freak grabbed the bag and started stuffing his face, all while crouching over the man's lifeless body. Why? Why?
Huh? You want some too, punk?
I finally snapped out of it and ran away as fast as I could. I didn't stop until I was in a whole different neighborhood. When I was in a safe enough distance, I called 911 and told them what happened. Unfortunately, it was too late. The man who just wanted to eat his Cheetos in peace died in the hospital. The man who killed him ran from the scene, and it took the cops a few hours to find him. Later on, I followed up on the case and found out that he had been sentenced to 23 years in prison. To this day, over a decade later, I still can't look at Cheetos without thinking about that man dying in front of me. The story was inspired by a tragic Cheetos incident regarding a food fight between two St. Louis men, which concluded with one of them dead and the other behind bars. 42-year-old Roger Wilkes passed away on Tuesday night after he was stabbed over a pack of Cheetos. Shocked witnesses described seeing the desperate scuffle break out over the cheesy treats, followed swiftly by a knife being pulled. Wilkes was taken to the hospital but didn't survive. 49-year-old David Scott has been named as the man behind the slaying. He fled the scene, but was later caught by police a few blocks away. Police at first said they believed the men to be homeless, but have since released addresses for them. Scott was later charged accordingly.
I live alone in a fairly spread out suburb. I'm retired, so I can only afford a small house paid for by my retirement savings and social security checks. My wife divorced me 20 years ago, and I never remarried. All our children have grown up and moved on. At 64 years old, I haven't done much in the 2 years since I retired. I can't afford to travel, and I don't feel like going out of my way to see old friends. Mostly, I just watch TV until it's time for bed. The only time I leave my house is to get groceries. There's a nice area of woods in front of my house, but there aren't any trails through it, so it's only good for looking at. I just spend most of my time eating Cheetos and basking the view. In my old age, I have developed a strong taste for Cheetos. All of my life I avoided them. I never once ate them when I was younger, but in a spur-of-a-moment decision, I bought a small bag at the gas station and never looked back. I make sure my house is stocked with Cheetos so I can eat them whenever I want. I think I must be making up for all the Cheetos I never ate. One night, I was in my recliner, munching on a bag of Cheetos as usual, watching one of my favorite movies. I had all the lights off at the time. About halfway through the movie, I paused it to grab another bag. While I was in the kitchen, I heard a strange noise outside. It sounded like coyotes yelping or maybe a person cackling. I went to the door to check it out. At least from the peephole, I couldn't see anything. I made sure the door was locked and I let it go. Then I went back to the movie with my bag of Cheetos. A few minutes later, I heard the sound again. It was louder than before, and I was pretty sure it was coming from a person. I got up and checked through the peephole again, and this time, there was something out there, right across from my house at the edge of the woods. There was some figure I couldn't identify. It looked like it could be a person, but also maybe a large animal. It was too far away from the streetlights to be sure. I was able to decipher that they were standing on two legs, so I figured it had to be a person in some cheap animal costume. I was creeped out that they were just standing there laughing. I knew it had to be somebody completely out of their mind. But who in the hell would just stand in the woods at night and stare at houses while wearing an animal costume? I watched them for several minutes while eating my Cheetos nervously. The figure never moved. After a while, the chills had worn off and I was starting to get bored. So I locked the door and went back to the TV to keep watching my movie. Shortly after I sat down, I heard the floorboards on my front porch creaking, like somebody was sneaking up onto it. I rushed over to the door and checked the peephole, and there was the last thing I wanted to see. There was literally a man in a cheetah costume standing right at my door. I immediately backed away in shock. A moment later, the man knocked.
What do you want?
Open the door. I just want to talk.
You can talk just fine out there.
It would really be best if we did this face to face.
Maybe I'm too old-fashioned, or maybe I was just too curious, but I opened the door for him.
Who are you?
I'm just a cheetah. You mean you don't see the resemblance?
Huh?
Actually, I was wondering if I could have some of those. I smelled them a mile away and followed the scent all the way to here.
What? That's ridiculous.
No, it's not. I'm just a cheetah. I'm extremely good at tracking my prey. I have a good nose for smelling something dangerously cheesy. I hope you wiped properly and scrubbed those nuts. I wouldn't want to get the scent mistaken for something else.
Hey, how about I give you a couple of bucks and you can get a bag of Cheetos for yourself? This is my last one.
You're lying. I can smell the inside of your house, you lying bitch.
Please, just calm down, sir.
Just give me those Cheetos now!
Ah! Hey, those are mine!
Give me more!
I don't have any more! Look, you can have money, just go away!
I don't want your money, I want your Cheetos!
My hip!
That was your last bag, huh? You're a dirty, lying hoarder!
Help! Somebody help me! I need a hospital!
Shut up, you wrinkly ball sack!
This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a homicide that happened in October of 2019. Deputies responded to the Whispering Sands neighborhood and found 64-year-old Elijah Coleman unresponsive on the front patio of his home. During the course of their investigation, they located a Cheetos bag inside the victim's residence. They said that they were unable to identify a fingerprint on the bag. Detectives were able to determine that it belongs to 34-year-old Lorenzo Fitzpatrick Jr. Investigators interviewed the man who gave conflicting statements in regards to where he was at the time of the homicide. Fitzpatrick Jr. was reportedly arrested on one count of homicide. He is being held at the Marion County Jail with no bond.